Today, I'm going to be talking about tornadoes and a little bit about the audio of my coffee talks. All right. So there were no actual tornadoes, but I have a tornado on a mug, and it says Oklahoma, and I have here it says tornadoes on there. So I and I'll tell you the story behind the mug in a little bit. But first, I just wanted to I've been working on various pieces of my outfit to try to help the coffee talks work easier. And so right now, what I'm trying to figure out is microphone wise, I have several options. So for a while, I've been using this USB mic, and it was a fine microphone, but I kept having some issues with all the other sound. And so then just recently, I discovered where I can go in and adjust some of the noise reduction, the compressors, and other stuff like that. So that was good. But then while I'm looking at audio, I want to know what is best. So I have other options as well. So like today, I'm actually also I'm wearing a microphone here um, under my shirt. It's a little clothing wired microphone that I sometimes use for documentary filmmaking. Yeah, it's right there. And so that particular microphone, it is, I like a lot about it, but when I use it, I have to use this Shure little device here. And so the microphone comes in here, turns into a USB mic, plugs it into a computer. So it's kind of cool, and I've used it at different times with well, I've used this piece at different times with different microphones, but I've been trying to understand what my actual options are, what will sound best, and as a result, I'm experimenting and letting you hear some of the actual experiment. So I have this microphone where I, I'm using the noise suppression feature and just seeing if it'll take care of all the background noise, because there's usually a lot of noise. And then the other microphone, I just feel like, okay, so this is still the Countryman B3 that I just have right here. And then here's the Samson. Let's go back to that one. So here is this microphone again, and I feel like it sounds a little bit warmer, and so forth. So I'm going to have to later listen back through this segment and just see what I actually think. Right now, I am monitoring it. I don't usually like to monitor it like this because I start feeling like I'm talking in a weird loop because I'm hearing myself in here, and yeah, so it just gets a little wacky. So anyway, that's what I'm doing today. I have the two different sets of actual microphones. I have this one here, the Samson that I have used quite a bit, and then I have the one that I'm wearing here. And I'm just right now I'm just using the Samson. So that's my test, and I'll probably be playing with it and some of the compression and filtering features. Probably be playing with those in the next couple of coffee talks as well, until I figure out what's the easiest way for me to actually have a USB microphone that I like. Because a lot of times when I listen back to the talks, I don't really like it that much. And so I'm going to switch back just for this next little segment. I'm going to go back to the microphone, the Countryman B3. All right, so I'm back on the Countryman B3. It seems to be closer to me, so it's in some ways, I believe, louder. So that's my testing that I'm doing with that. Now, let me tell you the story about my tornado coffee mug here. So Stacy has been homeschooling the boys, And as they've been homeschooling, they were going through geography, and geography this year was just going through the various states and talking about each of the states, what some of the features. So they draw some pretty adorable, they'll do the outline of the state and they'll sketch things out. So right now, this week, they're studying Minnesota. And so they've been learning about lumberjacks and lakes and lighthouses and all kinds of stuff, and including now I'm losing the name of the really gigantic size um, lumberjack, the unreal. Yeah. Anyway, and his blue mule. So that's okay. And now I'm trying to focus this thing while I'm live here. There. So if I think of it, I'll come back and talk to you about that in a minute. But last couple of weeks ago, they were talking about Kansas, Oklahoma, the different states in the tornado belt, and the boys got very intrigued by tornadoes. They got to watch some videos of tornadoes and other things like that. And then a week ago, Monday, we were headed out. This had been Valentine's Day. We were headed out to Oklahoma just to do a little bit of quick film work with a friend. And as we were headed there, the boys were like, "Where are we driving? How are we going?" "Oh, we're going through Kansas. We're going through Oklahoma." Well, how many tornadoes are we going to see? And my thought was hopefully none. But they were so excited because they've been studying them, and now we're going to the very states where they happen, and they were like, "Can we see a tornado?" So we did not see any tornadoes. There was some strong wind. I drove in some very strong wind. I was pulling the Suburban and the trailer, and boy, we went through some ferocious winds. But on the way back up home, we got to, I think we were trying to find a museum to go to, and it was Thursday, the day that was kind of windy and cold there in Oklahoma and Kansas, and so all the museums were closing. There was a little bit of snow blowing, and it was really bitterly cold in places. And so a lot of museums had closed, and we were trying to find a museum to go to, take our time to come home and to study a bit. We were going to stop in Dodge City, but before we got to Dodge City, we wanted to stop in something in Oklahoma. And so we looked around, and in Woodward, Oklahoma, there is a museum, the Plains Indians and Pioneers Museum. I forget exactly what it's called, but we stopped there in Woodward, Oklahoma, and the boys were thrilled because not only were there things about Native Americans, not only were there things about cowboys and all of that stuff and the pioneers, there was a huge display on a big wall was full of the tornado that had happened back in, I believe, 1949 or 1947, one of those years. There was a big tornado that pretty much wiped out Woodward. I mean, the courthouse survived and a few other things, but some of the courthouse records were found miles and miles away on a riverbank. And so there were huge displays that were there, and the boys were excited that here was an actual tornado that they could see, that they had been, not that they saw the tornado, they saw the pictures of the tornadoes, and the display in the museum, there were pieces of wood and other stuff that had been, I guess, I wasn't sure if it was actually pieces of houses that had fallen down in the tornado or if they had just brought in old chunks of pieces of wood. But William and Hudson were standing there looking at it, and William said, there's the wood. It fell down from the house. And so he was super excited. And so after we'd looked at all of the stuff in the museum, we went to the gift shop, and I got this mug with a tornado in it. This tornado mug from Oklahoma. Yeah, you can see there's the Oklahoma bit, and there it says tornado on the handle. So the boys were very, very excited about the fact that they got to see Tornado Museum, even if they didn't get to see a real life tornado. So that's a little bit of what's been happening. Actually, I've been wrapping up several different film projects, working with other people. And now I'm in a place where I have a lot to do right here in my own office, a lot of film work, writing, planning, decision making is happening, and we have some editing that needs to be done that I'm working on. And so with the different projects, because we have the documentary film project we're working on, we have the, anyway, it's a lot. And so today is actually pretty cool. Oh yes, thank you. There's Paul Bunyan there. I finally got my... So Harvey, the answer to the question is yes, I can use both microphones at the same time, but I don't really want to. I'd rather use one or the other. And then Daniel reminded me Paul Bunyan is the guy's name up in Minnesota they're studying. So the picture I saw today was Paul Bunyan and his blue ox. And so I remember as a kid reading about Paul Bunyan and being so intrigued by Paul Bunyan. And we moved out to Montana, and the mountain behind us had a huge clear cut in it that I thought was shaped like a footprint. And so I call it Paul Bunyan's footprint, always up there. It's not what it was really called. That was just what me and my siblings called it because we had read it. So yes, we are, as I was saying, Stacy's busy homeschooling the boys, enjoying that season of our life. Corey is getting more adorable by the day. She coos and talks and smiles back when we talk with her. And so that's wonderful. You know, the boys are growing. They're getting ideas of things that they would like to do as a career and so forth. And I am, you know, continuing on doing what God has called us to do. And what is fascinating to me about that statement is that I can say I'm continuing on doing what God has called me to do. But there are so many times that kind of gets tested. Recently, I preached a message on the expectation of what is coming in eternity. You know, when we die, we want to finish well. We want to actually be doing what the King left us doing. You know, using the parable of the talents or the minas, and just having that conversation about what is it that Christ, our King, has asked of me to be doing, and when he returns, if I'm alive at his return, will he find me doing that? If I die before he comes back, will I be doing it when I die? Am I doing what God has asked me to do? And so this is, you know, it could be a very weighty question, and it is in some ways, but it's also a liberating question because I'm able to say, well, I need to make sure I'm doing the right things. And so there are seasons of my life where I feel very much like maybe floundering is the right word, where I'm trying to understand what's my next step, what am I supposed to be working on? And then there's other seasons where I already have a lot. And so I know I'm supposed to be working on this project, I'm supposed to be working on that project. So right now, like for instance, I interviewed a lot of people last summer and fall, and I need to go through them and start editing this together for the next project that comes after breaking the silence. But I also have a few more interviews I need to go get, stories that I need to find. And once I have the stories, then we need to set up, I believe we're going to have to set up some reenactment for a few of the stories at some point. And so I'm praying through that. What needs to happen? How does that need to look? While I'm working on all of that, you know, we have the family, and as even yesterday morning before it snowed, it was 0 degrees here this morning, and I don't know that it warmed up above 9 or 10 degrees today. It's a light snow, not much snow, but just very cold. And yesterday, before it got cold, I was out working on the RV. When we first purchased the RV a year ago, I had figured out that the heater in the car part of it, when I would want to switch between heat and cold, that little motor had stripped out the flap gate, and so it wasn't working right, and I was going to replace that little flap gate, and I just had never gotten to it. I would always just, in the summertime, I'd manage to stick it up to where it was always on the AC side, and then wintertime I'd have to push it down where it was always on the heat side, or vice versa. And so I finally got to replaced that yesterday and got the heater running so that it can be hot or cold either way. And we have a few more things we need to work on the RV before it's fully ready for the travels that will be coming later this year. And so I'm in a season right now of I have a lot of projects on my computer right here, a lot of projects in my garage, in my driveway, and our family just going on together, doing the things we're doing. There's a lot of stuff to be done, and I have a nice little to-do list that I keep updating and looking at, but frankly it's so much that at times in a season like this I can forget what I'm supposed to be doing, and I can get distracted, and I can just get really overwhelmed with all the pieces. And so it's been, for me, the last couple of days have felt like one of the first times in several months that I've taken some time off and I've been reading. One of the things I've been reading was Winston Churchill. He wrote several books. One particular I was reading was concerning the democracies, and I don't have it within reach here, so I can't show it to you right now. But he was recounting, I guess, mid 1700s all the way up through the 1900s. And as he's recounting this, he's telling me I'm learning something that I already knew. But it was just that there have always been so many wars, so much cruelty and fighting going on around the world constantly. And so in our day and age, and what was fascinating to me was in the 1800s, early 1800s, sometime between 1800 and 1815, 1820, in that time frame, there were multiple times when the people in England were so fed up with their government that there were times when just overnight 50,000 people showed up and were protesting somewhere. And they were done, and so the government would be like, okay, well, how can we, and sometimes they literally at one point, they sent the army out against the protesters, killed 11 people. And as I'm reading through this, I'm just thinking, here we are, it's 2021, and if humanism and evolution were true, we should have somehow evolved past the point of fighting anymore. But if the Bible is true, and the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, and we are who we are and we've rebelled against God, then it makes a lot of sense that we're still fighting and we're still having some serious issues, and we've always had those. And so there are people that will try to tell you that right now, this day is the worst it's ever been. But if you study history a little bit, you'll discover it's not the worst it's ever been. It's been a lot worse at different times, and we're really quite blessed. And so I want to make sure that I'm counting my blessings. I want to make sure that I'm enjoying my family. I want to make sure that while I have the opportunity, I'm doing the things I have to do. And so I named this one today Tornadoes, not because I was really going to talk much about tornadoes, but just it was more of how an everyday thing in our life can actually turn into a blessing and enjoyment. So for the boys, they're studying tornadoes. Then we go out to Oklahoma and Kansas. They're excited to think about tornadoes. We see tornado pictures, and just the zest and the zeal they have for life is awesome for me as a dad to live with them, to see how excited they get. We also stopped, and actually, let me see if I can find this one. I might have some pictures here. When we were on this last trip, okay, let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. Maybe. Oh, there it is. So Stacy really wants to climb the highest peak in every state. And so this trip, we took the time and drove about 30 miles on dirt roads so that we could go to Mount Sunflower, Kansas. Now, Mount Sunflower, Kansas is the highest point in Kansas. And here's the picture of us there. Yeah, there we go. And so Mount Sunflower, Kansas is this place, is 4,039 feet above sea level. It's just a big field. Right over here, this house back here, that's this bunch of trees over here, that's in Colorado. So it's the highest point in Kansas is just right across the line from Colorado. That's how close it was. But so we stopped there, we got pictures. Stacy got to write in the little log that we went to Mount Sunflower. And so that was important, okay, that we actually are doing things that we have goals. I guess this is the part that I was wanting to just say, is that we have some goals that are not super productive or specifically accomplishing something. They have more to do with something that we enjoy. And so, like, I have goals that have to do with stuff I want to do with the boys, camping and other stuff, things like that I want to do that aren't really super productive when it comes to my business or my ministry, but they're very, very necessary for the family. And so that's one of those things. We stopped there and we saw Mount Sunflower in Kansas. So I thought that was pretty awesome that we drove in. I mean, it's very, just a big not a cornfield even, it's just a big field where they have cattle in it and stuff. And it's on private property, but they have signs leading to it, and they're happy that people come and see it. So that's been the week I've had the last while, is just working on film stuff, trying to catch up with family. and then trying to kind of swim through all the taxes and the paperwork and all the projects and my to-do lists and everything, and to actually come out ahead. It's the season of the year that can be, for me, either very exhilarating and exciting, or just a little bit disheartening and discouraging. And it can all be intertwined so much, where I'm super excited about this and then discouraged about that, and back and forth. So this year I was very excited about some of our film projects that we were able to pay investors back on. Was just an incredible blessing to look back at the year and say, wow, 2021 was a really good year for that particular film. And so we're hoping for all of our film projects to eventually pay back our investors. But it's making movies is a very risky business, and it doesn't often pay off that well. And so we're blessed that at least one of our projects now has been paying itself off, and we've been able to pay back the investors who trusted us with their finances and said, well, most of them actually said, we know that you may not earn anything back off of this, but we think the message of what you're wanting to send out is important enough and strong enough that we want to help support it. We want to do this. And so we are grateful for those people in our lives who invested from that perspective. So, yeah, when I see my boys and their excitement, like something with their homework and doing tornadoes, and when I see how excited they are about those things, and then I look around and I have so much work on my desk all around me. I mean, the camera is nicely cropped so that you see this. I've been cleaning up a little bit down here, so this is actually looking a lot better in here, but now I have some extra stuff. You can almost see, well, you can see one of my cases just sitting down here on the floor. And let's see, back behind me, how can I make it where you can see? There we go. You can see the chairs with the stuff just piled on it. The floor is actually not as messy as sometimes, and the desk is almost cleaned up, but not, it looks really messy. So I have all this stuff around me that's mine to do, and I'm trying to remind myself that, as in the same way the boys get super excited about doing their school, I need to, and diligent, they have to finish it, and I can give them talks about staying with it and doing the right thing, but I need to give myself that same talk. And some days I half wish a tornado would just come in and take some of this paperwork off this stack and take it away somewhere else so I wouldn't have to worry about it. But I don't really wish that. I'm grateful for the blessing of paperwork and the blessing of business and the blessing of what God has called me to do. So that's kind of all that I'm talking about today, is just the fact that I've missed 2 coffee talks in recent weeks just because I was working on other projects. And I'm trying to figure out how to keep doing them even when that happens, which I think I'm kind of finished with those weeks for this year. So I should be able to keep it happening. But last week I would have done something, except I didn't have signal or good internet, good Wi-Fi where I was. And so I couldn't really do a live talk. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an update. I'm working on a lot of stuff. It takes a lot longer than I want it to take. It's not a quick and easy process, but I'm excited for the work that is coming, and hopefully later this year we'll be able to release another documentary, sort of as a follow-up to Breaking the Silence. And it might actually come out in 2 or 3 pieces, but I'm hoping to release at least one piece of it later this fall. So we'll see how that goes. I still have some filming left to do and some work left on it, but I'm hopeful that we'll have one piece for later. I just love how it's coming together. But yes, it's actually so late in the afternoon that I'm finally doing this, that it's time. I'm beginning to smell the onions and stuff from supper that Stacy's cooking, and it's time to start getting ready for the evening. So thanks for joining in today. May the Lord bless you. And I was thinking about the boys. God protected them from the desires of their heart, but let them see the display of what a tornado does. And so I was thinking about how often God actually does that for us, where He protects us. We ask for something, not fully understanding what we're asking for, and He'll kind of say, well, yes, I want you to see this, but I don't want you to experience that. And so He'll protect us, much the same way that He protected my boys from not actually seeing tornadoes. Like in their mind, they would have loved to see 5 or 6 tornadoes when we were driving through there. But in reality, had we actually experienced a tornado, it would have been not as happy or fun as just reading about them. So may the Lord protect you from your own prayers and answer them according to His goodness and His mercy. And I'll see you next week. I have several, or actually maybe later this week, I have several other talks that I've been trying to get to that I just wasn't quite ready for today, that I'd love to share. And one of them has to do with toxic people. And I actually have several more that I'd like to get to another one this week. So maybe later this week, I'll do one more coffee talk. Blessings. I'll see you next, whenever that is, whether it's next week or next, yeah, blessings. I'll see you then.